Namaste and happy Buddha Jayanti to all of you. Today I'll give you an overview of Buddhism, the easternmost of the Dharmic religions. There are currently 500 million Buddhists in the world, making it the fourth largest religion. And although it originated in India, it's widely practiced throughout East and Southeast Asia. Hinduism and Buddhism share many common beliefs, including dharma, karma, ahimsa, reincarnation, and moksha or nirvana. But Buddhism offers its own unique perspective on how one can attain nirvana. In order to understand Buddhism, it's important to know a little bit about its founder, Lord Buddha, who was born as Siddharth Gautama. Siddharth was born in Lumbini, Nepal in 563 BCE into a royal family. Upon his birth, a prophecy was made that he would either become a great king or a great spiritual leader. Now his father obviously wanted him to be the king, so he kept Siddharth in the palace and surrounded him by a lot of luxury so that he wouldn't be tempted to leave the palace and to be attracted to a spiritual life. But his efforts did not succeed. Since a young age, Siddharth was very inquisitive and gravitated towards the spiritual life. But eventually he got married and was preparing to become the king. That is, until one day he left the palace and saw for the first time old age, disease, and death. He was shocked because he realized that everything he had was not permanent and that life was full of suffering. He also saw an ascetic and was intrigued by how calm this person seemed and how he seemed unaffected by the sorrow of life. He was determined to become an ascetic and find a solution to suffering, which is why he decided to leave the palace. He spent the next 6 years trying to find a spiritual guru, but he was not satisfied. He tried various ways of trying to do penance, and at one point nearly starved himself to death. But he realized that no one could lead him towards the solution to suffering, and that he had to find the answer for himself. So he went into a very deep meditation with the resolve that he will not get up until he has found the solution. So, at the age of 35, underneath a Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, India, Siddharth attained enlightenment, or nirvana, and became known as the Buddha, or the awakened one. Buddha wanted to spread his message so that anyone who listened to him can follow it. He took the approach of the middle path, avoiding the extremes of self-gratification and self-mortification. The core of his teachings were the four noble truths that he discovered during his meditation. The first is dukkha, or the truth of suffering. He discovered that all humans were suffering, even if they didn't realize it. And this suffering could manifest even as unhappiness or like a restlessness or anxiety. The second one is samudaya, which is the truth of the cause of suffering. He discovered that suffering was a result of a craving for material desires. The third is nirodha, or the truth of the end of suffering, which is nirvana, or enlightenment. Now nirvana is very difficult to explain, but generally speaking, you can understand nirvana to be a state of infinite joy. The fourth is magga, which is the truth to the path that leads to the end of suffering. Buddha recommends that the way to attain nirvana is the Eightfold Path. The overall message of the Eightfold Path is to live a life with the right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. Buddha urged people not to be superstitious and not to pray for divine intervention, but rather to become one's own source of salvation. For this, he suggested 3 sources of inspiration, which he called refuge in the 3 jewels, or Tri Ratna. This is proclaimed through the Buddhist mantra, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. The first is Buddha, which refers to the actual historical figure and the concept of attaining enlightenment. The second is Dharma, which refers to the path of righteousness. And the third is Sangha, which refers to the Buddhist community, or any group of enlightened people. So just imagine how brave the Buddha must have been to go against mainstream Hinduism. He rejected the caste system and believed that everyone had the ability to attain nirvana in their current lifetime. All they had to do is rely on themselves and their own efforts. So Buddha was essentially a doctor for mankind. He realized that everyone was suffering and wanted to find the cure. He didn't want people to be distracted by superstitions or rituals and be focused on anything else that would prevent them from attaining enlightenment. One great example that Buddha gives is about a guy who is shot by a poisonous arrow. Now, instead of taking out the arrow and trying to cure the poison, the guy sits there asking questions such as, who shot me? Where was he from? Where did he shoot me from? What material was the arrow made out of? What caste was that guy? And he kept on asking questions and questions until he just ended up dying. In a similar way, Buddha says that stop worrying about, is there a God? How was the universe created? What year did so-and-so prophet discover what? He said focus more on how you yourself can attain enlightenment. We have a problem in front of us, and that's that we are all suffering. Why does anything else matter? We just have to fix that suffering. In this way, Buddha focuses less on the creation of the universe, on metaphysics, or on God, and instead places greater emphasis on how one can attain enlightenment. There are two major denominations in Buddhism, Theravada and Mahayana. Theravada means way of the elders, and they place a greater emphasis on the traditional teachings of Buddhism. They believe that mindfulness meditation and the monastic life are the best approach towards nirvana. Mahayana means great raft, and they place a greater emphasis on the bodhisattva ideal, which is where anyone can strive to become Buddha-like. To be a bodhisattva, you must be moved by compassion to help others attain nirvana, even if it means delaying your own liberation. There are many different subtypes of Mahayana, including Zen, which emphasizes meditation and emptiness, and Vajrayana, which emphasizes Tantra, or ritual energy. So hopefully now you have a greater appreciation for Buddhism, a religion of self-empowerment and peace. So thanks for watching, have a blessed day, and Namaste.